Hey there, Heather. Hello, there's Jeff Cutter down. Welcome you to another Canada Day video, and we're doing the sim matchup of the Vancouver Grizzlies and Toronto Raptors from each of the 6 years that the Grizzlies existed in Vancouver. Of course, this is specifically Vancouver versus Toronto, and this is not Toronto versus Memphis. Now, I know what you're thinking is like, why do you not have a PC game that could basically talk about Raptors versus Grizzlies? Well, I do. PC Replay Basketball does have Raptors versus Grizzlies. The only problem is they have the seasons from 2008 onwards. And we all know Vancouver was only, the Grizzlies were in Vancouver from 1995 to 2001. And there are no seasons that PC Replay Basketball have done, and I checked last week, that have had both the Raptors and Grizzlies be in Toronto and Vancouver, respectively, and not Toronto and Memphis. So I decided to take the on its way out and want to do basketball. So this is it. Sim matchup, from WhatIfSports. Sim matchup, just like basketball, like baseball, football, and hockey. That's kind of my things for the what ifs that I always do. The what ifs, like what if the 2001 Mariners made the final against the Diamondbacks for baseball, or the Blue Jays. What if the '85 Blue Jays made the finals? NBA, it's like what if the Boston Celtics did go to the 1967 finals and go for 9 straight titles, or what if the um, Toronto, or what if the Toronto Raptors actually did win that game against AI and Sixers when Carter clanked the shot off the rim in 2001? What happened? NFL practically, it's like what if the Patriots did make the playoffs in 2008, as opposed to losing the playoff spot on a tiebreak because Tom Brady got hurt? Or what if the I gotta think of one right off the top of my head here without looking it up. What if the Buffalo? Well, I can't say what if the Buffalo Bills won a Super Bowl because that technically is wrong because the rules are that for the 4 sports I can't do like finals rematches. That's a different kind of little fish. Well, anyway, in the NHL, it's like, what if the 2023 Boston Bruins, who won 65 games in the regular season, actually did get out of the first round? How far could they go? Or practically with the Leafs, it's like, what if the Leafs did make the 93 Stanley Cup Finals? So anyway, we're doing NBA. We're doing Vancouver versus Toronto. So the rules are simple. Vancouver will play Toronto once in Toronto, once in Vancouver. It will be a total points series. If one team wins 2 out of 2, then yes, they're safe. Otherwise, it will be based off of total points and winning margin. If it is by less than 5 points, then we will have a third and deciding game. Now, if a Vancouver team does beat a Toronto team and all that, then we will see what we can do. But but as of right now, Vancouver and Toronto's got to do something about it. So anyway, here's game one in Toronto at the Sky Dome, and it sees the Grizzlies lose 99-98. Wow. The Raptors had to work for it. Damon Stoudemire, 25 points, 14 assists. These are the rosters that WhatIfSports have for 96. Like both, like final players and starting. Greg Anthony putting up 25 points. The former Nick Bryant, Big Country Reeves, who was big in the Final Four in 1995 in the NCAA with 20 points. Blue Edwards with 14. Joe Wilkins, former Cavan, Nick with 4 points. Kenny Gaddison, former Net with 4. 10 points by Ashraf Amaya off the bench. Byron Scott, former Lakers icon, 7 points. Chris King, Derek Martin, Richard Manning, Manuel Benjamin, former Sonic star, and Eric Burdock. Playing the best, the Raptors, 25 from Damon Stoudemire, who was also in the 95 NCAA tournament and drafted ahead after Ed O'Banion, which Raptor fans were pissed off. They wanted No, sorry. The Raptors drafted Damon Stoudemire before Ed O'Banion, and everyone said, fuck, why didn't we get Ed O'Banion? Although, in 2 ways, that actually worked out well. Because Damon Stoudemire was named Rookie of the Year, Ed O'Banion was a bust, and Ed O'Banion is basically told to fuck off because if it wasn't for him, then we would see the NCAA football and basketball series continue past 2014. Nevertheless, Oliver Miller from Arkansas, doing the 14 points. Tracy Murray, former Washington Bullet, with 14 points. Sharon Wright, former Sixer, with 12. Willie Anderson with 6. Doug Christie, former Nick, with 2 points in 18 minutes. Tony Massenberg, former think 6 or 9 points. Tony Masson. AC Earl with 9 points. Jimmy King, former member of the Fab Five for Michigan, with 6 points. Vincent Esposito, who was a great player from Italy, getting the Italian community of Toronto up there. Alvin Robertson, before he became king, 4 minutes of work. Jean Tabak, who was a great center and all that. And Carlos Rogers from, I can't remember where he was from. Anyway, we go to Vancouver. Toronto has a 1 point lead. Game 2 sees the Grizzlies crush the tar out of the Raptors, 112-95. So the 96 Grizzlies technically kick out the 96 Raptors because they won by plus 16 points. Damon with 16, Sharon with 16, Tracy with 13, Miller and Anderson there. There were some extra guys. Martin Lewis, Dan O'Sullivan, John Spider Sally before he decided to fuck off and play for the Bulls. 96. Ed Pickney, former MVP of the 1985 NCAA tournament with Villanova. Carlos Rogers and Herb Williams, former Nick. The Grizzlies benched Eric Mobley, Lawrence Moden, Kuzo Martin, Doug Edwards, Anthony Abbott, and Eric Murdoch. So the 96 Grizzlies win. So we go to 1997 now because, that's what happened. Toronto had the better win record and both teams with different players. Oh, fuck. What? I thought I said 97. Okay, never mind. My fault. Anyway, so Vancouver, big change. You see is Sharif Abdul Rahim, who they Grizzlies drafted third overall, and Toronto Raptors got Marcus Camby second overall, number 1 pick, Allen Iverson. But that was only because the NBA fixed the draft lottery so that the Raptors or Grizzlies could not be the number 1 pick for many years, and the Raptors wouldn't get the number 1 pick till 2007 with Bargnani. Anyway, game 1 in Vancouver. They decided to go to Vancouver game 1. And the Grizzlies win 99-93. Big Country doing his job. 24 points from Damon, 13 from Walt Williams, former Nick. Popeye Jones, who was a cultural hero in Toronto, alongside Marcus Camby, who was part of the 96 draft. And 5 points by Doug Christie, who finally became a starter. Reggie Slater, 14 points. Sharon Wright, still around. Carlos Rogers, Hubie Davis, former Nick. Donald Whiteside, and Cliff Rosier, future Trailblazer. Former Trailblazer, sorry. 19 from Big Country, Abdul Rahim, part of the 96 draft, 16 points. Andy Peeler with 16 points. Greg Anthony still around, 11 points. George Lynch, the former Sixer, with 10 points. No, future Sixer, excuse me. Blue Edwards with 10 points, putting him on the bench. Chris Robinson, Lee Mayberry, Roy Rogers, not the Cowboy, and Eric Mobley. So the Grizzlies by 8, right? Game 2. In T-Dot sees the Grizzlies sweep the Raptors. So this is an interesting moment. So the 97 Raptors get swept. Big Country, 17 points, 16 rebounds. Sharif with 20 points, Puller 13. Lynch had 5 fouls. The benches were like slow. Down to Whiteside. I forget who he was. But yeah, 20 points from Marcus Camby in 30 minutes. Popeye only 6 points and 13 rebounds. So the Grizzlies win that battle of the Reigns, 98. Raptors from 1998. 19 and 16. These two teams were pathetic and all that. Big move, Wade Mayberry for the Grizzlies. The Raptors and their big 5, Gary Trent, being picked up from Portland for Damon Stoudemire. Of course, WhatIfSports has it both players who started the year and finished the year. Game 1 sees the Raptors crush Vancouver 131-111. Damon Stoudemire 30 points. Sharif 27 points. Big Country 11 points. Blues Lee Mayberry 21 minutes but no points. Sam Mack 12 points. Antonio Danis 14. Bobby Hurley, the former Duke iconic point guard, played for the Grizzlies. I didn't know that. Tony Massenberg 8 points for a Raptor for 15 minutes. Ivan Newell, George Lynch, former North Carolina star. Pete Chilcutt. Otis Thorpe, the former Rocket icon. Michael Smith, Chris Robinson, and Larry Robinson. 30 points from Damon, Christie 17, Camby 12, Trent 12, Williams 12. Popeye 8 points and 23 minutes off the bench. John Wallace, the former star of Syracuse in the 96 NCAA Final Four with 17 points in 17 minutes. And former Nick. Sean Tabak, finally getting some minutes. D. Brown, the former Celtic who won the slam dunk competition in 1991. Chris Garner, Chauncey Billups before the Raptors gave him up, and he ended up being on the Pistons and helping them out. Sean Respert, Carlos Rogers, John Thomas, Lloyd Daniels, Sharon Wright, Reggie Slater, and Oliver Miller are still around. So the Raptors just don't have to win, but they don't. They do 124, 121. They actually didn't have to, as long as they didn't lose by more than 20 points. So anyway, the 98 Raptors are going to get the thing. Damon, 22 points, 13 assists, 25 points from Camby. Trent with 22 points. Nice job. All the starters got 19 points for the Raptors. Nice. They basically showed in the bench to 5 players. 34 points from Sharif in a losing effort. Lee Marbury only 6 points in 25 minutes. Antonio Gannon's got 13 points in 24 minutes. So that's good. Ivano Newbold to Pete Chilcutt. Now let's switch things up to 1999 for the Grizzlies. When the Grizzlies were 8-42. Strange as it sounds, that 160 winning percentage is not the worst in NBA history. I thought it would be. Well, 8 out of 50. They only played 50 games because of this first lockout in NBA history. See Felipe Lopez and all that. Raptors 23 wins. They were getting better and all that. They had this guy from North Carolina. Actually, what people forget about the Vince Carter saga is that Vince Carter wasn't drafted by the Raptors. People forget that. Vince Carter was drafted by the Golden State Warriors. In the 1998 draft, the Raptors drafted Anton Jamison. And obviously, you know that when I say those two guys, Jamison for Carter, it was a swap. It actually worked out for both sides. Vince Carter was the star for the Raptors, and Golden State got their guy, Jamison. Anyway, game one in Vancouver sees the Grizzlies keep it close, but they only lose by 2. So Carter, 14.6 rebounds. Doug Christie, 16 points, still around. Vince Carter, 14 points. Charles Oakley, who the Raptors picked up from the Knicks. It was always big with trying to pick up former Knicks. Kevin Willis, 14 points. He wasn't a Knick. I think he was a former Rocket and many other teams like Portland. D. Brown, Alvin Williams before he became big. John Thomas, John Wallace was still around. T-Mac was in 98, 99. I forgot that T-Mac was drafted the year before Vince Carter. And he and Carter were cousins because they bumped into each other at a family reunion. Michael Stewart, known as Yogi, and Reggie Slater are still there. Grizzlies 19 points from Sharif, 16 from Big Country, 11 from Mike Bibby, who became big, and I think that was the 98 draft pick by the Grizz. Sam Mack and Felipe Lopez also there. Cherokee Parks from Duke, 3 points in 20 minutes. DeJuan Wheat, Doug West, Terry DeHare, J.R. Henderson, and Tony Massenberg. So the Raptors go home with a 2-point lead and crush the Grizzlies in the fine powder, and they win their second title, in a sense. Doug Christie, 23.6 assists. Not much for the Grizzlies and all that. Michael Smith, Pete Chilcutt, Mayberry, Roderick Rhodes, and Jason Sasser coming off the bench for a few minutes. Slater, Nago Knight. Good thing I said that right. Sean Marks, Michael Williams, Mark Baker, and Willie Cunningham. Man, the Raptors did not have a very good bench. So anyway, the 99 Raptors win that matchup. So for the second straight year, the Raptors won it. The Grizzlies won the first 2. Grizzlies 22 wins in that one. Bibby Dickerson, Dennis Scott. Dennis Scott was a Grizzly? I forgot about that. Joe Big Country. Toronto, Muggsy Bogues, Doug Christie, Vince Carter, Charles Oakley, Antonio Davis. These Raptors made the playoffs and put a scare in the Knicks, but couldn't do anything to the Knicks in 2000. Yeah, the Grizzlies. Of course, the massive stuff. Yeah, talk about the 96 Grizzlies. I should have said that. You know, they won their first 2 games. The Raptors only won their first game and lost the next one. But yeah, the Grizzlies were 2-0, and then they had that 23-game losing streak. And of course, drama 98. 99 was huge drama. Vancouver didn't get the number 1 draft picks. For some dumb reason, the Bulls got the number 1 draft pick. I guess because they lost Michael Jordan and they wanted to help the Bulls out. So Elton Brand was picked by the Bulls. Second overall went to the Vancouver Grizzlies. And guess who got it? Steve Francis. That's right. Steve Francis was a Vancouver Grizzlies draft pick. Unfortunately, though, there were some problems at the Vancouver International Airport with security and racism, supposedly. So Francis basically told Vancouver to fuck off and wouldn't play for them. So Houston's like, we'll take him, and then gave some players, including Dickerson, back to Vancouver. Now, a lot of people have the misconception that Steve Francis hated Vancouver from the start, but technically, no. He said he actually could have made it work out with Vancouver, but the problem was the racism. And the Raptors, of course, made the playoffs in 2000, as I said. How bad will the Grizzlies lose? Actually, the Grizzlies win 102-93. Sharif puts up 23 points, 15 rebounds. Could they pull off a massive upset? 23 from Sharif, 19 from Bibby, 14 from Dickerson. Big Country with 6. Dennis Scott, the former Magic star, with 9 points in 21 minutes. Ophelia Harrington, who went over from Houston in the Steve Francis trade alongside Michael Dickerson. There's Doug West, Felipe Lopez, Brent Price, the former Cleveland Star three-point shooter slash free throw shooter. Cherokee Park still around. Anton Carr and Milt Palacio for future Raptor. 23 from Doug Christie, 18 from Connor, 10 from Antonio. Muggsy Bogues, former Hornet star point guard who was only 5'3", doing his job. Charles Oakley still around. Kevin Willis still around. D. Brown, T. Mac in his last year at the Raptors. Del Curry, you know the last name. Yes, that Curry. Del Curry, that is. No points in 13 minutes. A 14-year-old Stephen Curry probably would have scored like 10 points. Michael Stewart, Alvin Williams, and John Thomas. So the Grizzlies are up by 9 points. They got to go home. What will the Raptors do? They will crush the Grizzlies 96-79. That's 17-point win, minus 9, 8 points. So that's just enough. The Raptors win that little thingy. Vince Carter, 18.6 rebounds. Davis, Christie, Muggsy, and Bogues. They didn't really have the points. Kevin Willis had 15 points in 60 minutes off the bench. D. Brown had 9 points, more than Christie and Bogues and Oakley. So Curry had 8. They added Haywood Workman. I forget what school he was from. Antonio Lang, former Dookie. Alexander Rajelic, and Sean Marks. The Grizzlies, 20 points from Sherif Abdul-Rahim. Shooting was terrible. Brent Price had 17 points off the bench in 13 minutes. Dude has as many points as Dickerson, Reeves, and Scott did, and they had 58, 77 combined minutes. Anyway, Ophelia, Price, Anton Carr, Mil Palacio, Obina, AQC, Grant Long, former Piston, and Joe Stevens. So we go back to the 2001 Grizzlies and all that. Taking on the 2001 Raptors, who did win a playoff series and forced the Raptors to a Sixers to a game 7 in Philly. Carter making a hesitant shot, and he failed. Vancouver with 23 wins. Bibby, Dickerson, Long, Ovella, and Big Country before they got sold to Memphis. The Raptors win 107-87. Carter, 26 points, 8 rebounds. Antonio Davis, 14 points. Corliss Williamson, doing his job. Mark Jackson, former Pacers and Knicks guard, and Kevin Willis being the starter now, former Hawk. 14 points from Mo Pete from Michigan State. He was part of the 2000 team that won the national championship. Keon Clark, decent guy from UNLV, 9 points. Charles Oakley on the bench. Alvin Williams, Tracy Murray, 3-pointers off the bench. Eric Montrose, the former North Carolina icon. Muggsy Bogues, Tyrone Corbin, Cornell David, and Michael Yogi Stewart. For the Grizzlies, 25 from Bibby, Dickerson, Harrington, Grant Long, and Brian Reeves. Reeves did not do as well. Sherif Abdul-Rahim put on the bench. Why? Stormile Swift from, I would say Kentucky, but I'm probably wrong. I forget what school Stormile was from. He was pretty good. Isaac Austin from Heat, Kevin Everts, David Jones, Tony Massenberg, Mahmoud Abdul Rauf, who unfortunately is a bad figure in NBA. In 1996, he took a silent protest by not turning his attention to the American flag while he was playing for the Nuggets. It was actually, for the first, 60 games, there was no problem at all. They ignored it, but then one reporter wrote on it, and basically they blackballed them. They said Brett Price, Doug West, and Eric Strickland also playing. So the Raptors look pretty impressive. And they narrowly beat the Grizzlies, but that's enough. So the first two Grizzlies teams Clay, 96 and 97. And then the next four, Toronto. Antonio Davis, 18 points, 12 rebounds. Every Vancouver starter got double digits, 19 from Sharif off the bench in 35 minutes. The Raptors, 24 points from Vince Carter, 5 fouls, not good. Mopina and Oakley did well off the bench. So the question on everyone's mind is, what do we do? Well, the 96 Grizzlies will take on the 96 team will take on the 2001 Raptors, because the rule is that we will go oldest. Oh, come on. I said 2001 Raptors. Hi, hi. So yeah, the 96 Grizzlies will take on the 2001 Raptors, youngest versus oldest, if you will. Grizzlies, the 96 team, 91 points, but lose. Carter, 22 points. 16 from Greg Anthony, 10 from Benoit Benjamin, 22 from Vince Carter. Mo P, 20 points off the bench. Jackson and Corliss did nothing. So yeah, so nice job by Mo P to come up with it. And then back in Vancouver, game two, the Grizzlies get their butts handed to them. Antonio Davis, 13 points, 11 rebounds. So the 96 Grizzlies fall to the 01 Raptors. Well, at least they won the first two. 14 points from Vince Carter, 12 from Murray, 10 from Mo Pete. No, Dai, there he is. 11 points. Oh, yeah, Del Curry. Oh, yeah, 11 points for Greg Anthony, 10 from Blue Everts and Kenny Gaddison. Scott and Benjamin with 9 points each. And then, you have your hello guys, like Kunso Martin. So the 97 Grizzlies will get home and they'll play the 2000 Raptors, youngest versus oldest. So if the 2000 Raptors do take out the Vancouver Grizzlies, then the Raptors technically win this series. The 97 Grizzlies lose only by 9. Vince Carter, 24 points, 7 rebounds. Davis, Oakley, Christian Bogues, 4 fouls from Mr. Davis. Grizzlies, every starter got 10 points. They have 5 guys there. Now they got to go to Toronto and probably get blown out. Or not. Raptors blow it. The 2000 Raptors blow it. 109-85. Shabib Abdul Rahim does his job, and the 2000 Raptors are technically out. So, yeah. The 97 Grizzlies pull off another upset, and they take out the 2000 Raptors in this series because, 24 points minus 9, 15. So, nice job by Sharif. Peeler, 4 points. But hey, you know what? Chris Robinson got 12 points. Chris Robinson, 25 from Vince Carter. So the 97 Grizzlies would take on they're going to say whoever wins between the 90. Well, I don't know, Mo. So what they're going to do is have the 98 Raptors and the 99 Raptors take on each other in a one game, in a two gamer themselves, because that will actually decide which team will be there. 16 versus 23. It's got to be the 99 team. The 98 Raptors win 94-90. So the 98 Raptors take out the 99 Raptors and will play. So the 98 Raptors are around. They'll take on the 97. Now the question on my mind is, do I let them play the 97 Grizzlies? I think I will. So what will happen is the 98 Raptors will take on the 97 Grizzlies. Who have pulled off 2 playoff rounds in a row. 14 versus 16, yeah. So 97 Raptor, Vancouver against 98 Raptor, or Toronto, if you will. And whoever wins will face the 2000, if the 90, face the 2001 Raptors, in a sense. But of course, we're doing it through the 6 seasons that the Grizzlies were in Vancouver. Game 1 sees the Raptors nip it by 2 points, thanks to Gary Trent's 16 points, 17 rebounds. 21 from Big Country, 18 from Damon. Wallace and Popeye off the bench for 10 points each. Raptors are early up by 2. In Vancouver, the Grizzlies get their butts handed to them by David Stoudemire's 25 points, and the 98 Raptors do help out and take out the last Grizzlies team, 120-91. Grizzlies were only down by 2. I thought Vancouver's going to pull off another upset. The 97 Grizzlies are going to pull it off again. Not so fast. Damon and Doug do their job. Yeah, 70 points from Sharif. So yeah, so the 98 Raptors are the ones who knock off the 97 Grizzlies and ruin their chances to pull off 3 massive upsets. So the 98 Raptors, so we'll concede the 2001 Raptors, but yeah, the 98 Raptors would have technically won because the 2001 team was just too damn good to make the playoffs. It wouldn't matter. But anyway, thanks for watching this convoluted thing because it's fun. Anyway, I'm jumped. I'm going to do.